Okay, I just watched Passengers 2016, and oh my god, we need to talk about this because it's getting out of control. As we know, movies love to create these impossible scenarios where a man meets woman, they fall in love, end up together, yada yada yada. The whole story is always how do they get from point A to point B. And a lot of the times they try to come up with these like really stupid storylines to justify the end results, almost like making it an impossible to believe story. And we've seen a few examples of really badly done romances. You can check my playlist for the gays and the girlies. But Passengers takes the cake. And this is coming from someone who's reviewed a movie where a man kidnaps a woman for a year to make her fall in love with him. This is worse. This is way worse. So for those of you who don't know, Passengers stars Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. They were at the height of their career, 2016 superstars. Anything they're in is gonna make a shit ton of money. And I guess they wanted these two to bump uglies in a movie because that is the only explanation for why they would do this. The story follows two passengers aboard a spaceship headed to a colony world 120 years of travel away. And unfortunately, they wake up 30 years after the journey starts and they have 90 years left. Well, one of them wakes up by accident and then decides to wake someone else up because he's too lonely. It gets worse. Chris Pratt plays Jim Preston. He wakes up first. He spends a year and 3 weeks alone and then wakes Jennifer Lawrence's character up. Her name is Aurora, and he wakes her up because he falls in love with her while she's asleep. I don't even know where to begin. Is it really that bad for straight men out there that this is the romance that needs to happen to prove that there's still hope out there? We know stalking, right? But trapping someone in a spaceship for 90 years with you is beyond diabolical. It's beyond demonic. I don't care how lonely you feel. It's essentially murder, repackaged into, I was lonely. But then the movie takes it one step further and tries to like somehow justify why actually that was a good thing that he did that. The fuckery in this movie is insane, and it keeps reminding me of that video, Man or Bear, who would you rather be in a forest with by yourself, and all the women choosing the bear, leaving straight men everywhere incredulous, befuddled. Why would you choose a bear? Don't you know how big and strong they are? Missing the entire point of the question and the answer. And this movie answers perfectly why the choice is always the bear. Because a bear would have minded its business. A bear would have just probably died like it should. A bear wouldn't have caused her paw to malfunction and to wake her ass up 90 years before the time. Like, what are we doing? And a few other details around this movie leave me like just dumbfounded. First of all, the person that wrote the script, obviously a man with a story like this, he also co-wrote the script for Dune and Dune Part 2. Remember that Oscar-nominated screenplay? It's a polished turd, because the story is still shit. The plot is bad from the get-go. It doesn't matter how well you make the movie, and that's where the actual movie comes in, because the movie is pretty well done. You know, visually, audibly, it looks good, it sounds good. It has everything to be good, minus the story. And the story, you gotta go back to the drawing board. You gotta go back to the script writing phase. And I don't know, this movie was condemned from the beginning. All the negative criticism directed at this movie was mainly at its plot. Understandably so. And my hatred for this movie is only very, very tinily related to my distaste of Chris Pratt in general. Not very happy with Jennifer Lawrence at the moment either, considering her full support for Amy Schumer following her posts. But you know what? I don't know. It's hard nowadays to support anyone. So let's just rip the movie a new one because, yeah. Also, I just want to reiterate, because I've seen a few comments on a previous video of mine. When I'm talking about these movies, I'm not talking about the actors, okay? I'm not talking about the people in real life. I'm talking about the characters and I'm talking about the story. So any negative criticism, any opinions that I have, first and foremost, should really not matter. I have no presence online and I'm just me. I'm just an individual in his room. Also, my negative comments are aimed at the movie itself, the product. That's what we're talking about here. It's the movie. So, hope that clears it up because y'all don't need to write paragraphs on why I shouldn't be ripping Jennifer Lopez a new one. Like, she doesn't care. I don't care. It was never about Jennifer Lopez in the first place. It was just a look at her career in movies through the years and reviewing the movies. It's not my fault that her movies are bad. Sorry, maybe she should get a new agent. Y'all really need to save it for school. You know, write a book. If y'all really have that much to say, save it for a book, you know, make money out of it. And with that said and with that out of the way, I'm high. And this is going to be fun. I hate this movie. Oh. So with all that said, let's get into Passengers 2016. Not to be confused with Passengers 2008 starring Anne Hathaway, which is also bad in its own way. So, Passengers. There's a spaceship going to a colony world 120 years away from Earth. Years of travel, that is. It's like really far away. And the design of the spaceship is beautiful. She looks like a doll, a bad bitch on heels. I don't know why heels, but if you look at it, she's just a girly. And the way the spaceship travels, it has this light in front of it. I'm guessing it's like the motor, and it creates like a shield against any objects along the way. Unfortunately, a storm of meteors manages to hit the ship, and a malfunction causes a hibernation pod to shut off. And inside this pod is Chris Pratt, my favorite guy, sir. Jim Preston is one of the 5,000 passengers going on this trip to colonize a new world, and they also take 500 crew members to, do stuff with a spaceship. He wakes up and is initially confused because there's no one else around, but eventually realizes he's the only person awake on the spaceship. He also finds out that of his 120 years of journey, they've only completed 30. He's woken up way too soon, way before time. They were only meant to wake up 4 months before getting to the planet to have time to acclimate to the world, get over the hibernation hangover, because they feel really sick when they wake up. The only person he finds is Arthur, a bartender played by Michael Sheen. He's a robot, but he has the ability to speak, I guess, to have some sort of a personality, enough for Jim to have a conversation, but not enough to satiate his need for human connection. He spends a long time trying to find a solution for the hibernation pod. Unfortunately, he can't get into a really important room that only gives access to crew members where he would potentially find equipment to fix his hibernation pod. Because, according to the spaceship, malfunctions never happen. These hibernation pods are like bulletproof, foolproof against any mistakes, against any errors, and here we are. Along the way, he sort of like accepts his fate and tries to make the most out of things. He lets his beard grow and his hair grow. And one day, while having a little stroll along the other hibernation pods, he comes across Jennifer Lawrence's pod. Her name is Aurora, and he is struck by her beauty. He's immediately mesmerized and fascinated, and he looks into who she is, because each pod has like files about each person, and in those files are video interviews of Aurora. So he starts watching these video interviews, and then he reads about her more and more, and he starts talking about her with Arthur, explaining how he's really fascinated by her, not just her beauty, but also her personality. Basically starts falling in love with her without ever talking to her. Now, this man is lonely, okay? At this point, he's been in there for a year. It's bad. This man probably needs to get off. And seeing this beautiful woman in front of him, he's now struggling because he's in love with her. She's the only reason that is keeping him alive. Should he wake her up or not? And if you have to ask this question, then you need to be in jail. And at one point, he cuts all contact with her. He never goes to her pod anymore. He never watches any of her interviews. He doesn't read anything about her or her work because she's a journalist and a writer. But that doesn't last long. And eventually, he gives in. He wakes her up. 1 year and 3 weeks after he got woken up. So now there's 88 years and 9 months left. No, that's not right. Now there's 88 years and 11 months and 1 week left on their journey. I'll praise the acting because the acting is good. Aurora wakes up and Jennifer Lawrence gives us a performance. She realizes that they are all alone, freaks out, wants to find a solution for the hibernation pod. There's a lot of faffing and waffling about, but eventually she comes to terms with the fact that she might never go back into hibernation. She's just going to live and die in this ship, and decides to continue writing. This is where we find out more details about Aurora that are going to make us hate Jim even more. Aurora's plan as a journalist was to travel to this colony world, live there for a year, write about the world, write about the human experience 120 years after they left Earth, like how things must be back home. And then after 1 year, travel back to Earth, now getting there 250 years after, that's not right. Yeah. 240 years after she left the planet, she's now coming back, only a year older, and with an entire new world and civilization for her to explore and to discover. Now, of course, the ramifications of that aren't great, considering we're on self-destruction mode. We'll be lucky if we have a planet in 10 years, let alone 250. Nonetheless, she's gonna write the story of a lifetime. It's the story. And he woke her up. So now all of that is gone. She was investing in her career, and this man was like, no, actually, I need a wife. Clearly, this is really bad. And then they start dating, and they get closer and closer. And I have to say, if you start watching this movie from the moment she wakes up, it's an actually pleasant, romantic story. They do a good job at building chemistry between these two characters. It's just well done and believable. It's entertaining. And it's got two good actors doing good acting. No more that we would need from a romantic comedy. Now, if you watch the movie from the beginning, then this is a horror story. This is a horror movie. And we're thinking, how far is he going to let the charade go before he decides to skin her alive? Because somehow, that's always what they want to do in these movies. So anyway, they start dating and they start sleeping together, and she starts interviewing him to make him a part of her story that she's going to leave for humanity to find at the end of their trip. You know what? I don't even remember why he wanted to leave the planet. It's also inconsequential to the story. There's really not much focus. He's a mechanic and he knows how to build stuff and is like, yeah, he's not a dummy when it comes to like technology. And she's a writer. And then in a voiceover, we hear her write about how she was never satisfied with life, with what she achieved in life. So she was always chasing for the bigger and better thing. And this trip was part of that. But now that she's stuck here and she has no way out, she's going to have to accept her fate. She finally feels at peace and happy with Jim, essentially saying that actually what she needed to be happy was for a man to trap her in a spaceship with him. That's... Single women out there, don't give up. There's a man out there for each and every one of you who will stop at nothing to get with you, including trapping you. He stole her life, and the movie is romanticizing the entire thing. Why? I get that they're attractive, but if we want to see, if you want to see two attractive people kiss and bump it, that's why we have porn, okay? This is just stupid. It's... Anyway, eventually, because of a miscommunication with Arthur the bartender, she finds out that he's the one who woke her up. And then he starts telling her about how he had fallen in love with her months before she woke up, and how he struggled, and he was just so lonely. And she has the normal reaction, which is to run the fuck away and tell him to stay far away from her. My favorite part is when one night he's sleeping and she shows up in his bedroom and just starts beating him up. punching him, kicking him, and then almost hits him with a crowbar. She would have killed him. I would have said, yes, ma'am, but she doesn't. Yeah. It's her reaction and her behavior after finding out is pretty decent and believable and reasonable. Great. Now, this is around the time where they could have followed the narrative of he's actually obsessed with her and he's going to try everything in his power to get to her, and she's going to have to find a way inside this spaceship that he knows so much better than she does how to win, how to survive. That would have been great. Probably wouldn't justify the amount of money they spent on this piece of crap. Oh my God. 110 to 150 million dollars just so we could see them swim in a swimming pool inside a spaceship with direct view to space. Booyah. Eventually, something happens. More malfunctions start happening, like lights flicker and, the power goes off and then resets, till one day there's a bunch of glitches and someone else wakes up. A crew member, a chief operations officer. No, that can't be right. A chief of an army. He's got a bracelet that acts as, I may be too high. The guy wakes up. It's Lawrence Fishburne, Morbius from Matrix, not Morbius, Morpheus. Lawrence Fishburne from the Matrix. His name is Gus. Gus Mancuso. He finds out that Jim woke Aurora up, but they can't really do anything about it because, there's bigger fish to fry. I've been trying to say that for like 5 times. There's bigger fish to fry. There you go. Long story short, when Jim woke up, that was the first major malfunction in the ship. And since then, there's been several every day, every week, every month. And now they've hit a breaking point. They are now well underway to the spaceship blowing up in like a few days, maybe hours. There's been so many things going wrong that it's just now a matter of one more and we're all dead. To make matters worse, Gus finds out that he's got over 100 disorders with his body, a lot of cancer, a lot of stuff. When he asks the machine how long he's got left, the machine tells him that actually he's already dying. Here are some pills for the pain. Aurora and Jim are left to try to find out what's the big bad thing that's happened to the ship. Where is the big malfunction? And they find a breach. There's like a tiny hole somewhere, and it's just messing with the pressure inside the cabin. Anyway, they managed to close the hole, and they're so lucky that there was 2 of them, because one of them would have died, would have gotten sucked right into that tiny hole and just come out on the other side like a sausage. But they were together, and it was through teamwork that they fixed this breach. And then they find out that the main computer of the spaceship is also malfunctioning. There's a piece that Jim replaces, and now all they have to do is open a hatch outside of the spaceship so the supercomputer thing, whatever this light is, can cool itself. But oh no, it has to be manual, and it can only be opened from the outside. So Jim has to put his life at risk, and Aurora has to stay inside because, wouldn't you know, to save the spaceship, they need 2 people. One to go outside and one to stay inside and pull the lever so the supercomputer can cool off. Isn't it so lucky that he committed murder and woke Aurora up? Damn, you can't make it up, right? It's very dramatic. He opens the door, then he has to stay outside because if he leaves, the door closes again, and then he has to be hit by a bunch of fire. Remember Thor in Avengers and Infinity War where he gets hit by a star? It's like that. And then he nearly dies. He floats away. The tether that is keeping him from floating into nothingness breaks off. So then Aurora has to go outside to save him. And at this point, she's desperate for him to stay because she's all by herself. And in the end, very dramatically, she saves him, brings him back inside. And mind you, none of what happens with all of this is necessarily bad or badly done. It's just the premise that we're going off of. I would have left his ass floating away so quickly, it's not even funny. I would have finished the job with a crowbar in the first place. I would have probably drowned him. I would have found so many creative ways of killing him that by this point in the movie, I would just be alone in the spaceship and it would blow up and I would die. And so would everyone else in a cryosleep. But guess what? I would have gotten revenge because that's how petty I am. But no, They save the spaceship, they save everybody, and then he finds out that in a medical pod, there's a setting that basically shuts off all of your vital functions, your metabolism, basically puts you to sleep and stops you from aging for however long you need. Kind of like a hibernation sleep. So he tells Aurora that if she wants, he can put her inside this medical pod and she can hibernate the rest of the journey. And she's like, but you will be alone. Yes, bitch, get in the pod. Let's go to sleep. Chop, chop. But no. Aurora stays with him because she doesn't want him to stay by himself. And we're supposed to accept that because they fell in love throughout the movie after he woke her up and sentenced her to death. Oh yeah, in the end, everybody else wakes up and it's like a forest inside the spaceship. They, I guess, planted a lot of greenery. And then in the voiceover of the book that she wrote, she talks about how wonderful of a life she had with Jim aboard the Avalon. I don't understand what happened. My God, what were they thinking? Also, how the did they get birds in this spaceship? Were they like in cages to... Oh, they were probably bringing animals to colonize the world. God, we love to colonize shit, don't we? That was Passengers. I don't know. Wow, like, my God, is it really that bad for men dating out there that you have to come up with these stories to get... Y'all just use your hand, I guess, because this ain't worth it. This is crazy behavior. This is unhinged. And with that said, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, always choose the bear. And if you like this video, feel free to leave it a like down below, subscribe to my channel, and stick around because we've got more stuff coming. Can't say what it is because the schedule keeps changing, but there's stuff, there's things. Okay, till next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering.